Hi, everyone. I'm AJ Willoughby. Glad to be back with you again for another Monday night product call. Here we are the night after our convention. We had an incredible time, heard so many great announcements, and a lot of stuff that I'll tell you, this is going to be an incredible 2019 coming up with so many things happening. But right now, tonight, we have a special guest, Kelly Hurry, who is with us this evening. And Kelly's got an incredible testimony. We were talking a little bit about it earlier, and I want to just go ahead. We're going to get right to it. Kelly, welcome to the call tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're so glad to have you on. So you were telling me a little bit about what the difference that CoreAO has made in your life and these products. Tell the story that you were telling me a little bit about your past and what's going on with you.
Sure. So I have had chronic headaches for probably about the last 20 years. I have a neurologist because I had epilepsy as a child. So I still have to go to the neurologist every year. And part of my chronic headaches, it's not associated with my epilepsy, but they have me track my headaches just to keep record of them and try to figure out what's going on. There's never been any diagnosis. I've seen a nutritionist, a dietitian, my general practitioner, and from logging food to my cycle to exercise activity, everything, there's never been anything other than you have chronic headaches, which to me was not a good answer. So when I went to conference in Nashville, I met Connie, and Connie and I were talking, and I told her, I said, well, you know, as of July 14th, I started drinking CoreAO. It's something new that came into my life through Jamberry and and I was excited about it. And I thought, sure, I'll try it. You know, the best testimony is your own testimony. So I might as well try the products. So I started drinking CoreAO, and I talked to her, and, you know, she said, well, Connie's thing is, do you have any inflammation? And I said, well, I have headaches. And she said, well, sure, that's inflammation. So we talked a little bit about it, and she said that she encouraged me to keep drinking it and drink it every single day. So I said, okay, if you think it'll help, I will try it. I will drink one Core every day. So I have my Core, I drink one every day. And from July 14th to today, I still track my headaches for my neurologist. I have had 12 headaches since July 14th. And I may not have said it before, but I had 3 to 4 headaches a week for the past 20 years. I've logged that, like I said, with my neurologist, and 3 to 4 headaches a week is a lot. It's something that I think you end up managing it. You move on with life. You do what you can. I stopped taking Advil at a certain point because I was so fearful of getting an ulcer just from all the Advil that I was taking. So, and my husband would always, you know, he would tell the kids, you know, shh, don't do that. You know, mom has a headache, or, you know, anything. And I got to the point where I was just really tired of hearing my husband say, you know, shh, my mom has a headache. And I thought, I don't want my kids to grow up thinking mom always had a headache when we were growing up. So it sounds cliche to say that something is life-changing, but it truly has made a difference in my life to have something, and going from 3 to 4 headaches a week now to only 12 headaches since July 14th.
So something that's debilitating in this way of being able to not really feel like you can function through life when you've got that to what you feel now. I mean, how would you describe the quality of life that you have now compared to how it was before?
It's really different. I don't think that you realize how much you function with a headache and the things that you can and can't do until you have a huge switch in life and you go to not having headaches very often. And just simple things like I don't constantly have to, you know, make sure that I have Advil with me, or, you know, I've found that I can do a lot more things with my kids and, you know, with my husband and everything. And it's not a, shh, you know, quiet, mom has a headache. So it's really made a difference in just my day-to-day living. And like I said, a big part of it was not telling people that I had a headache and kind of suffering in silence, because I just didn't want people to tiptoe around me. That was a big thing. I hated everyone always tiptoeing around me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask a question here?
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, I noticed that you're sipping your Core. Do you drink your Core throughout the day?
I usually drink this. I made this probably 20 minutes ago. So I usually will drink it within an hour, 1 bottle within an hour.
Okay, how many would you take in a day?
1.
Okay, let me make a suggestion to you.
Sure.
There is something in medicine, particularly when we talk about drugs, but it is equally true of the elements which are called polyphenols, which are the sort of drug-like substances, if you wish, that plants have elaborated to protect themselves against the same kinds of dangers that we experience. Now, I don't know whether plants have headaches. First of all, I don't know where their heads are. But the fact of the matter is that for most of the things that we eat plants for, is to get the substances that they have evolved as protective agents against the same problems that we have, infections, radiation, things of that nature. Now, the half-life, I believe that in the product that you're using right now, it is the mangosteen that's looking after the headache. Now, that I say, not only because I'm biased in favor of the mangosteen, but because I saw this before when I was using the product for a long time. It had nothing but the mangosteen in it. Now, this has been amplified beyond the mangosteen because it is being marketed primarily as something which is going to support your immune system. And for that, you need many more antioxidants. And so there are several other things. And it's entirely possible that there could be some synergistic reaction between them. But the point I'm trying to make, and I'm having a tough time getting there, is that the half-life, which means when you ingest something into your body and it gets into the bloodstream, that's where the half-life begins. And within the period of time of the first half-life, half of what you absorbed is gone. Now, the half-life of the elements in the core is 3.4 to 4 hours. 3.4, some of them go up to 4 hours, but none of them are really any longer than that. Now, that means that if you are using what are called first-order pharmacokinetics, the way that the body is using these things, you're never really getting to a blood level. You're getting a little surge in your blood, and that apparently is enough to make a big difference. But my suggestion is that if you were to take this 3 times a day, you're going to establish, first of all, blood levels, but then you will also establish tissue levels, and you may have fewer headaches as a result of it.
Okay.
So
I would love to make the headaches go away completely.
well, they possibly could. Try it 3 times a day, always with a bit of food, so that if, for example, you're not having it with a meal, then with a swipe of peanut butter, a little tiny piece of cheese, 3 or 4 almonds, that's plenty of fat to get the elements in the mangosteen, which require fat for absorption, into your, into your system. And then by taking it at those intervals, within 2 weeks, you're going to have blood levels, and the beginning of tissue levels. Within 3 weeks, you'll have tissue levels, which means that you've got the thing that your body is apparently using to control the headache in much higher concentration in your body.
Okay.
So, Dr. Templeman, let me ask this. So as far as a headache, where is it that typically headaches are derived from? Is it a constriction of blood in our brain? Our brain's getting too big?
When we operate, and I don't, but when there are operations on the brain, you can burn the brain, you can cut the brain. There is no sensation in the brain itself. And there is no blood in the brain. There is an effective thing called the blood-brain barrier that keeps all of the blood on the outside. Now, certainly things have to be able to get in and out of the brain, and they can cross this blood-brain barrier, but it's rather permeable to most of the elements are on the side of the head, generally, when we're talking about headaches. And there are also areas of the brain called the meninges, which do have blood vessels that run through them. And in migraine headaches, there is an inside the skull phase of migraine where there is a constriction. The brain gets deprived more or less of blood, and it sends out a signal, open up the blood vessels. And then all of the blood vessels in the body kind of open up, but the ones that give you the headaches are the ones which are constricted tightly between the muscle sheaths that cover the skull. We don't have fat on our skull, really, not to speak of. We have muscle and skin and connective tissue that is relatively tight. And so the arteries that run through those areas of tightness, they are going to be throbbing when the heart beats, and they're also going to be expanding in response to some signal from either inside the brain, in the case of migraines, or in the case of tension headaches, it may be something that arises from the muscles but involves the vessels as well. But most headaches are in the expansion of the arteries that are in the scalp. And so that's why sometimes people can actually hold that, and this is I think it must be the American Sign Language for headache. But you hold your hands here and you compress the temporal arteries, and that actually decreases the pain in a number of headaches. So it's almost always vascular, and it's always the arteries, and it's always because they are expanding at the wrong time and causing us pain.
So how is it that the mangosteen and the CoreAO helps with those arteries to keep those arteries from expanding at the wrong times?
Well, that's a little bit more complex, and I'm not too sure that the science has been studied to elucidate the actual mechanism, but we know that the elements in the mangosteen are vasodilators quite generally. They do not constrict. Caffeine constricts. A number of other things will constrict the blood vessels in the body, but the CoreAO tends to make things expand when you're talking about vasculature. So there's no easy answer there, because the problem is the blood vessels are expanding too much anyway. So I don't think that's the mechanism. What I believe happens is that when the blood vessels expand, they stretch their walls, and they also stretch the muscle tissue and the connective tissues, which are held tightly around them. And that causes an abnormal stress, which releases factor P. Now, factor P is an active ingredient that you can imagine. P means pain. So it releases that. It also releases a number of other signaling elements that bring on inflammation. So is there inflammation at the bottom of this? Yes, in all likelihood it is. And the mangosteen being the wonderful stifler of inflammation, because there are 4 pathways that are majorly known about this. And we know now that the mangosteen will effectively block 3 of those 4 pathways. So I believe that it is inflammation subsequent to the dilatation of the vessels that is causing the pain. And by blocking that inflammation, you block the pain in much the same way that people with arthritis may get relief from the discomfort that they feel in their joints for similar reasons.
Incredible. That's great. So here we are. We have an instance where and probably why the reason she's had such relief, even from just one stick, has been because of, sipping on it throughout the day, having it for a longer period of time, getting that mangosteen in her body and relieving those pressures enough to alleviate that, correct?
Yes. Now, we can't say with any kind of precision what it is in the elements that she's taking in the core that the body is wanting in order to be able to control the inflammation. But apparently it wants not a whole lot, because what she's getting are milligrams only when she's taking 1 dose per day. And I would prefer the word serving rather than dose. I shouldn't say dose. Dose is restricted to medicines. This is not a medicine. So what we think about as a single serving per day is just a very, very small amount, and that she's getting relief with that. I'm not a betting man, but I'd almost bet that if she,
I think we're losing you there.
3 servings, going to see.
Okay, can you have to repeat that? You broke up a little bit, but I want to hear what you had to say about that.
I say I'm not a betting man.
Okay.
But it's obvious that you are getting response from just the teeniest bump in whatever it is that your body is wanting to control the inflammation. And that if you give it more by doing it more often and therefore prolonging the effect, I'd be willing to bet that you're going to have tremendous relief from your headaches by just going up more on the same thing.
Awesome. That's great. So Kelly, so when you're talking to people and you run into someone and they're saying, oh, yeah, my head's been hurting or whatever, what is it that you usually tell people as far as what, hey, you ought to try this? How do you explain it to people?
I just tell people, that something happened to fall into my lap, and it wasn't something that I had necessarily sought out, because no one had ever given me an answer to why I have headaches or how to make them any better. And I just tell people, if I never told anyone about any other product to get in my life, I would tell people about the Core Stick, because that one little Core Stick, like I said, sounds cliche to say something has changed my life, but it's made a huge difference, not only in my life, but in the life of my husband, my kids, everyone around me, because they don't have to deal with Kelly always has a headache. So that is my go-to. And I would say, out of the people that I've introduced the sticks to since July, I would say probably 70% of them are Core users. And I think that's a big part, because it's my testimony that gets people. And I've seen amazing things just in my friends and my customers, and, inflammation from fibromyalgia, with nerve pain and arthritis and different things. It's amazing what it does for people. And so it truly has made me a believer and a lover of the product.
You know what's interesting about fibromyalgia, if I can just go into that for a second. When fibromyalgia first began to manifest itself, I was just a new physician at that time. And it came from Australia. So we thought the people in Australia began to give time off from work as a result of fibromyalgia, and it became a disease that was recognized. And we thought maybe it's infectious, because after they started to have that, we started to have it in North America. So we wondered if it wasn't some kind of infective agent, which of course we now know that it isn't. But the fascinating thing about fibromyalgia is that you would become extraordinarily sensitive to pressure, touch, even the cold wind that you might have blowing across an area of your body that was sensitive. It was called hyperesthesia. So you would have feelings, and in this case, feelings of significant pain that would radiate from a trigger point in your muscles. But when we biopsed the muscle where the pain was being experienced, it was entirely normal. There was nothing abnormal in the muscle at all. And the nerve that served the muscle, absolutely nothing at all abnormal. And finally, we learned it's at the brain. It's up here on the little homunculus, the human figure that is represented on the sensory cortex, that the pain is being experienced. And so you'll feel it wherever it is. Like when they have someone's head open and they touch here and they say, what can you feel? And they'll feel some sensation in the body distant from there, because they're touching the representation of that part of the the nerves serving that part of the body. So it's a central problem. And there is something that is in excess, which is called cyclooxygenase, which is up there, and it's a mediator for inflammation, and there's too much of it. And we have always had aspirins, a number of other things, which are COX-1 blockers, but the COX-2 blockers that we needed to have by the brain, even though they invented a few of them, and some of them were on the market long enough to kill a few people, they've taken them off. There's really only one, Celebrex, that is still out there, and it has a black box warning on it. But it appears that the mangosteen may help the body to neutralize that imbalance of cyclooxygenase at the brain, and that's why people get relief from fibromyalgia. So a completely different mechanism than the one that Kelly has experienced, but the same positive endpoint, less pain.
Wonderful. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for being on the call with us tonight. Anything else before we tell everyone goodbye?
No, thank you guys for having me, and I'm looking forward to the future.
I'll tell you, it's going to be a great future. And we've got some amazing products that really are changing lives. Dr. Templeman, any last words from you?
No, nothing except
Those are great last words. You're digitized now, Dr. Templeman. We need to work on your internet.
Good night, people.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Everyone have a great night. We'll talk to you all next week.